September 26, 2022, just before 8 p.m. A sailing ship is drifting gently on the Baltic Sea. The captain is getting ready for the night. He checks his radar and sees 2 red blips flashing on the screen. He stares out into the darkness. Nothing. So he radios a nearby ship. Their crew reports something strange. Giant whirlpools in the water. When his ship approaches the spot, the captain is hit by a sharp and sour smell. Gas. He immediately notifies the Swedish authorities. They confirm his suspicion. There's an underwater leak. Tons of natural gas are flowing uncontrollably into the Baltic Sea. Nord Stream 1 and 2 are a twin set of undersea gas pipelines running from Russia to Europe, the longest in the world. And they've been hit. 4 separate explosions at 2 different locations roughly 50 miles apart. It soon becomes clear that this was not an accident. It was an attack. One of the largest acts of sabotage in history. A violent act that triggered the largest methane leak ever recorded and threatened the energy supply of Europe's largest economy. Enormous teams of journalists race to uncover who did this and why, while authorities stay suspiciously quiet. Out of the fog of war, an unbelievable story begins to take shape. One of conflicting intelligence, possible false flag operations, and a scramble for evidence amid Europe's largest armed conflict since World War II. A story of speed camera photo clues, an aging yacht, traces of military-grade explosives and CIA training. And of a ragtag crew of patriots on a Hail Mary mission that would change the geopolitical landscape of an entire continent.
Gas bubbling up over an area of more than 1 square kilometer in the Baltic Sea.
A boiling cauldron. The busy Baltic Sea bursting with gas from ruptured Russian Nord Stream reinforced pipelines.
One of the investigators told me that this case is by far the most relevant, political sensitive and important case in the history of the Federal Republic
There
of
are
Germany.
no shortage of theories about who or what was behind the blast.
These are Nord Stream 1 and 2. The 2 largest underwater pipelines in the world. Total cost about 17 billion euros. They stretch across the Baltic Sea, running straight from Russia to Germany. Back in September 2005, Vladimir Putin and then Chancellor of Germany Gerhard Schröder shake hands on the deal to build the first pipeline. It's Schröder's last big move before leaving office. Just weeks after losing re-election, Schröder lands himself a new gig as chairman of Nord Stream AG. He becomes the top lobbyist for Russian energy giant Gazprom.
Wir brauchen dieses Gas und es ist das kostengünstigste, das wir bekommen können. Und jeder, der sich mit Energiepolitik beschäftigt, weiß das auch.
His successor Merkel keeps pushing the project forward. By 2011, cheap Russian natural gas is flowing straight into Germany. Russia is making roughly 10 billion euros a year. Economically, Nord Stream 1 is a huge success for both countries. Soon enough, Russia is supplying nearly half of Germany's natural gas, and talks for a second pipeline are already underway. But outside Germany, Nord Stream sparks some serious backlash. The US warns the project could give Russia dangerous leverage, turning gas into a geopolitical weapon. And the European Union also wants to reduce its dependence on Russian gas. Eastern European countries are pushing back especially hard. Until now, Russia's only way to get gas into Europe was through Ukraine, Poland, and the Baltics, paying hefty transit fees along the way. The Nord Stream pipelines allow Russia to go around these countries. Some military analysts think Putin might have invaded Ukraine much sooner, but he still needed his gas pipelines that run through Ukrainian territory. Either way, Berlin remains undeterred by the criticism. Russia has already illegally annexed Crimea when Germany signs off on the second pipeline. In late 2021, Nord Stream 2 is ready to go. But when Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine becomes imminent, Germany pulls the plug on Nord Stream 2. A few months later, Putin cuts off gas through Nord Stream 1. Both pipelines stay loaded with gas though, ready to reopen at any moment. And then, in September 2022, this happens. So, who's behind it? This could just as well be the plot of a gripping whodunit. Some stories and images are so striking they end up decorating our walls. But let's be real, traditional posters tend to be like Russian pipelines. They rip. This plate is different. They offer high-quality metal prints, bold, durable, and easy to set up. You just stick a magnet to your wall, snap the artwork on, and it's done. No tools, no holes, no hassle. You can choose from over 2 million beautiful designs, from abstract landscapes to officially licensed stuff. Think iconic worlds and franchises like Star Wars, The Witcher, or Cyberpunk 2077, a personal favorite we actually got on our walls. The new Textra series looks especially good with those raised textures and 3D contours. Check out these incredible NASA designs, for example. If you ever feel like switching things up, they swap out in seconds. And now's the time to get yours. This plate is turning 12 and they're throwing their biggest sale of the year. 33% off 1 to 2 displays, 37% off 3, and 42% off 4 or more. Every order comes with surprise gifts, and yes, the discount works on Textra too. Just use the code FERN or click the link in the description. displate.com/@fern. The Baltic Sea is one of the most closely monitored bodies of water in the world. Larger ships have to constantly share their GPS location. And the kind of explosives you'd need to take out 2 pipelines at once is extremely hard to come by. Investigators soon agree. Whoever pulled this off had access to serious resources. This must have been a state actor. The first prime suspect is Russia.
Was wir aber sehr klar sagen können, ist, wer ein Interesse daran hat, dass das zerstört wird. Und da komme ich über kurz oder lang immer wieder auf Russland, weil es um Unsicherheit geht, um steigende Energiepreise.
There's also a possible financial motive. Russian state-owned energy giant Gazprom faced massive damage claims after cutting off gas supplies in summer 2022. Blowing up the pipelines could give them a legal excuse to duck out of those contracts. This is Holger Stark, the deputy editor-in-chief at German weekly newspaper Die Zeit. He has spent months digging into the case.
When I first heard about the explosions, I immediately thought it must be the Russians. It just fits their classic pattern of obstruction, of sabotage, of provocation, and to me, it just made perfect sense.
And initially, the suspicion seems to hold up. 4 days before the explosion, a Danish naval vessel patrols near the island of Bornholm. It spots 6 Russian ships, right where the pipelines will be blown apart 4 days later. They're dark ships, meaning their AIS transponders are switched off and they're not broadcasting their location. One of them is the SS-750, a 100-yard special ops vessel designed for underwater missions. On board, a mini submarine equipped with cranes for heavy-duty lifting. Exactly the kind of setup you'd need to plant explosives on a pipeline. 3 months earlier, 2 other Russian military vessels have been spotted dark shipping the very same waters, right around the future blast site. What exactly were they doing there? Around the same time, suspicion also turns toward the United States. Just weeks before Russia invaded Ukraine, President Biden and German Chancellor Scholz held a joint press conference.
If Russia invades, there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
6 months later, both pipelines explode. That's when Seymour Hersh steps in, a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative journalist known for uncovering major scandals, but also for spreading highly controversial theories. He claims that US Navy divers planted the explosives on the pipelines during a NATO exercise in summer 2022. He also says they got help from a Norwegian Navy minesweeper and surveillance aircraft. The alleged motive: to push Russian gas out of the European market and make room for American liquefied natural gas. Norway is another key supplier and would benefit too. But Hersh's story quickly comes under fire. The flight data recordings from Norway do not match his timeline, and the ships he mentions haven't even been near the site.
My impression is that Cy Hersh had just one source, an old source from the world of intelligence, someone who picked up fragments of a story and then filled in the rest. Hersh admits that he had only this one source and that this source didn't witness anything firsthand, and to me, that's already a red flag.
Hersh is 88 by now. In recent years, he has been repeatedly criticized for relying on thin sources and pushing shaky claims. He no longer comments publicly on his Nord Stream story. The strongest lead points to neither Russia nor the United States. Shortly after the explosion, Holger Stark gets a crucial tip-off from a well-connected source inside the intelligence community.
So I called someone I've known for a long time and asked, was it Russia? He just looked at me and with a very long and quiet and doubtful look, he slowly shook his head.
After the explosions, German authorities immediately launch an investigation. The Federal Prosecutor's Office picks up the case. The case is so politically sensitive that several major media outlets start joining forces. You'll find the links to their impressive research in the description. Julia Klaus is an investigative journalist at public German TV broadcaster ZDF. She is part of one of the extensive research teams. She tells us that despite the heavy secrecy, they were able to get their hands on one crucial piece of information.
So we picked up that the Andromeda yacht may have played a role in the operation.
The Andromeda is a small German sailing yacht just over 15 yards long. But could such a small boat be used to pull off such a sophisticated military-grade underwater demolition? It does have one major advantage. It's discreet. And unlike larger ships, it doesn't have to broadcast its position. The journalists uncovered that the Andromeda was chartered between August 27 and September 24 from a German boat rental company called Mola Yachting. The total rent of 11,900 euros was wired by a Polish travel agency. They submitted 2 passport copies, one Bulgarian, one Romanian. The name on the Romanian ID was Stefan Marcu. Marcu lives in Moldova, a small landlocked country in Eastern Europe. Julia Klaus and her team get on a plane and pay him a visit.
We were sitting in his garden, and when we showed him the passport number,
Nord Stream 1 and the recently completed Nord Stream 2. From Rügen, the Andromeda makes its way to Bornholm and docks again on the small Danish island of Christiansø. Out on the open water, the crew starts assessing the situation. The boat is past its prime. The wood clean. Now, both pipelines sit idle, partially destroyed, deep beneath the Baltic Sea. Since March 2025, there's been talk of bringing Nord Stream 2 back online. A US investor has reportedly expressed interest in buying and repairing the pipeline, but no one knows just how realistic that is, or how Germany and the rest of Europe might respond.